I always find it funny how people forget that video games are a business and not some charity for you to use for free. Can't afford video games? Might want to look for another hobby. Oh, you care about preservation? This ain't a museum. You know, this commenter may as well have written Nintendo can bend me over and fuck me raw as much as they please, and they would have conveyed the same exact point. Yes, how dare I have problems with blatantly anti-consumer practices like keeping their games at full price years after they released, or striking down uploads of their OSTs even though for the longest time Nintendo has made no effort to make their OSTs easily accessible. And now you have this stupid app where you could listen to Nintendo OSTs, and it's locked behind Nintendo's god-awful online service. They could have just dumped many of their game soundtracks on already popular and established music streaming apps, but Nintendo just needs to siphon as much money from their base as possible. Capitalism, baby, and if you don't like it, just go look for another hobby. And oh, you want to play old games that may not be accessible anymore because they released for 20-plus-year-old hardware, and you don't want to potentially fork up over $100 for just the game, and maybe even the console it released for, if you don't already have the console? Well, gaming isn't a charity or a museum. Just suck it the fuck up and pay out or don't even bother. Even though old games whose only way to play officially is still playing it on the console it originally released for, can only be obtained these days through the second-hand market, meaning Nintendo or the developers who worked on said game don't receive a fucking cent off of you buying the game from some rando on Facebook Marketplace or eBay. So I don't know about you, but I especially don't see an issue with emulating old games that you can't easily obtain anymore and can only be playable on ancient hardware. Oh, but wait, according to this doofus, video game preservation doesn't matter because this ain't a museum. Yeah, just keep slobbering that fucking boot. Nintendo fanboys are so insufferable, dude. Is it any wonder why I don't like making Nintendo rants anymore? Because 9 times out of 10, it's people like this they attract. But thankfully, I've never had to deal with any fanboys of other video game platforms, right? Oh, spoke too soon. For everyone moaning like little bitches about the price of an optional games console, either get a better paid job or find a hobby that you can afford. Yes, if you have a problem with new hardware that is merely just a marginal upgrade over the original hardware, and said marginally upgraded hardware is priced erroneously at $700 fucking dollars, well then just stop complaining and get a better job, because switching jobs is totally very easy in today's job market, especially if it's for something as trivial as wanting a new game console. It's the same point as the last dipshit commenter. Oh, you have a problem with these corporations being blatantly anti-consumer? Well, too fucking bad, just lie down and take it. If you're not in a financially stable position, that's your own fault and you have no right to complain about blatantly anti-consumer practices. Like I said to the last commenter, just keep slobbering on that boot, you fucking ignoramus. Young Sheldon had he looks like the emoji too. Only a fucking nerd would do this BS. He needs to shut up with his according to my calculations looking Little bro needs to get back to doing his homework. The emoji has been around longer than him. Make bullying great again. Corny kid. Fucking geek. Little bro is the type of guy to say nerds unite. Sounds like a skill issue. Tell bro to get a 9 to 5. Bro's mad cause he looking like nerd emoji. Okay, gross insinuation about how bullying is supposedly a good thing, and telling a 9-year-old to get a 9 to 5 aside. Anyone else kinda tired of all these people replacing the word ass with For one, it's been appropriated to hell and back from African American vernacular. Two, who gives a fucking shit if you say the word ass? Ass is like near the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to swear words. Even network television doesn't censor that word. So I have never understood why so many people feel the need to self-censor and replace ass with It doesn't make your comment look any cooler. In fact, it makes your comment look even more goofy. Anyway, let's move on from this dumb comment. It sounds so fucking stupid, doesn't it? I thought you were based until I saw this. What's next? You licking a furry's boot on camera while saying how bad it is to hate furries? What? I'm LGBT, so don't call me homophobic, because that isn't gonna work with me. I mean, Blair White is a trans woman whose entire online presence is reaffirming transphobic talking points. And to be a pick-me for transphobes to point at and say, look, she's one of the good ones. So yes, you can be LGBT and still be hateful towards others who are trans or gay or bi, etc., much like how you can be black and also be hateful towards other black people. It's stupid and self-contradictory, yes, but not impossible. But here's the shit kicker. You want to know what made this person lose all respect for me and write this comment? I like The Last of Us Part 2. Yes, I like a game that this person doesn't like, and that was enough to make them fly off the fucking candle. I don't know what it is about this game that breaks people's brains so much. Yes, the story is controversial. I personally like the game, I like the story, yes, I have some qualms with certain aspects of the story, but overall, I thoroughly enjoy the game. And I can handle if someone else doesn't like the game. I've witnessed plenty of healthy discussions between people who like the game and don't like the game, and want to genuinely understand the other's viewpoint. Hell, I've even partaken in some of those. But then you have other people obsessively hating the game 5 years later, like Neil Druckmann broke into their home and murdered their family or some shit. And it's like, you don't have other things to fixate on all this time besides a video game? Even some fans of the game are pretty fucking annoying, to be honest. Like, I joined a Last of Us 2 subreddit, not the hate one. This was a genuine subreddit for people who actually like the game. And most of the subreddit was just dunking on posts from the hate subreddit, and I'm like, I don't fucking care about these losers, I just want to read discussions about the game itself. You have fans who can't shut the fuck up about those who hate the game, and of course, like I said, you have people obsessively hating the game nearly 5 years since the game released. I just want a chill environment where people are discussing this game in a civilized fashion, but I guess that's too much to ask for. So no, I won't be calling you homophobic for not liking the game, even though I didn't even choose to dive into the anti-woke shit in my video discussing the game, aside from the end of the video where I said I chose not to bring any of that shit up because I felt like it was not worth taking seriously. And I won't be licking any furries' boots on camera, and hey, I have no problem with furries, why the fuck should I give a shit? Tone indicators are degrading, as they give off the impression that the user of the indicator thinks that neurodivergent people need the tone of a sentence to be directly spelled out and displayed to them to understand. Like, wow, so good, make more videos please. It's obviously a positive sentence. You see, this is my problem with other neurodivergent people saying tone indicators are stupid. A lot of their argument boils down to, I don't like tone indicators because I feel they're degrading because I don't need them. Other neurodivergent people I know don't need them. And the tone of a sentence, even in text, is so obvious that you would be an idiot to not know the tone. Good for you and those other neurodivergent people, but for some people, it isn't so obvious. I struggle with tone a lot, unless I know a person well and I know their sense of humor. But even with people I know sometimes, I trip up on tone. They may be saying something that is so obviously a joke, but I take it dead serious. In text, again, I can usually pick up one sense of humor if I know them well, but even in certain instances, if someone sends me a message that is sarcastic or jokey in fashion, sometimes I have to reread what they wrote a couple of times to figure out if what they said was serious or not. Unless, of course, they end their text with an LOL or a haha. My argument basically boils down to be a little bit more aware of those who are worse at picking up on tone than you are. Because maligning tone indicators as a whole and saying they're degrading and treat neurodivergent people like they're stupid only makes those who genuinely benefit from the usage of tone indicators feel stupid for something that is beyond their control. Tone indicators completely ruin the purpose of a sentence. Example, I have been diagnosed with finger explosivitis. Notice the tone indicator is not needed because the statement is obviously a joke. Yes, your example may be very on the nose when it comes to it being obvious that it's a joke, but not every joke is as extreme as my fingers are exploding. Especially in text, it can be harder to pick up the tone when a joke is a little bit more subtle than that. What may be obviously a joke to you may not be as obvious to other neurodivergent people. And again, you just come off as maligning people for something that is simply beyond their control. Tone indicators, no matter how helpful they are, can be and are used as a weapon for cancel culture if someone does not use it in every part of their lives. I have never fucking heard of this happening. Tone indicators sometimes act as junk that's clogging up a comment, post, paragraph. It adds a lot of clutter to what could be a short 5-word sentence. I have personally never seen anyone use more than one tone indicator at the end of a sentence. For me, that hardly constitutes as clutter. No, r/drop the s is not entirely an ableist subreddit. It is people pointing out the overusage of tone indicators or times when they are clearly not needed. Again, clearly not needed according to you and those who are in that stupid subreddit. It's almost like every neurodivergent person is not the same. Some are worse at picking up on tone than others. And those who are worse at picking up on tone may appreciate the usage of those tone indicators you think are clearly not needed. Anyone who speaks about the problems surrounding tone indicators are labeled as an ableist. Well, yes, I do think having an issue with tone indicators is inherently ableist. You're treating neurodivergent people like they're a monolith because you personally may be good with picking up on tone, and casting aside all of those who struggle with tone more than you do and actually appreciate the usage of tone indicators. It insinuates that these people are inherently stupid because your argument basically is, look at this sentence that you struggle to read the tone of. It's so obviously a joke. I can read the tone of this sentence and I'm autistic, so why can't you? One's autism can impact them in different ways than it impacts you. They may be lower on the spectrum than you. And I think it is shitty for someone who is on the spectrum, which this person says they are, in a reply, to be unempathetic towards those who may struggle more with their disorder than you do. I'm sorry that you think tone indicators are so annoying and such an eyesore and so unnecessary. If someone is speaking directly to you and they use tone indicators, then fine. You can say, I don't need tone indicators, you don't need to use them when speaking directly to me. But if someone is speaking in text to a general audience or to people who may appreciate the usage of tone indicators more than you because they may actually fucking need them, well then too fucking bad. Being on the spectrum isn't some kind of hierarchy. You're not inherently better for not needing tone indicators, and they don't need to be scrapped just because you personally don't need them. Stop eating sugar and carbs immediately. Strictly eat eggs, chicken, salmon, fish. Take 0 carbs, sweet sugar cut out immediately. You just fucking said that. Take 200 micrograms of selenium 3 times a day. Only drink purified water or coconut water. Eat absolutely nothing else. Pray to King Jesus daily. Ignore this idiot who is running his mouth. He is not the one to listen to. Listen to Dr. Fred Hackfield, who did this exactly and no other meds were taken. He had only 3 months to live and the cancer cells died, and this former record holder of 1,000 pounds, he reversed it and lived. So with prayer and faith in King Jesus, you will beat this stage 4 disease. Remember, ignore this idiot running his mouth on this video. Well, that was borderline incomprehensible. Holy shit. Like, what do you say to people like this? How many more children and people in general do you need to see die to know that faith healing doesn't fucking work, and you should instead rely on actual doctors and trusting modern medicine? And I especially have no patience for these bullshit peddlers conning people and saying, you should take this alternative medicine I'm pushing. Don't listen to your doctor, and don't take any medication they recommend, or treatment they recommend. These are people's fucking lives at stake, and con artists like whatever hack doctor this person mentioned in their comment have no issue duping people into not trusting their doctors, not trusting modern medicine, and the outcome is almost always these people who listen to these bullshit peddlers end up dying, or their lives were destroyed by an illness or ailment that was previously completely treatable. Like one of my uncles, for example. He had diabetes and high blood pressure, and you want to know who he was listening to instead of his actual fucking doctor? Dr. Oz, who was pushing some kind of alternative medicine for diabetes and high blood pressure on his stupid fucking show. And my uncle ate up whatever he was saying, and you want to know what ended up happening? He had a stroke back in July. The right side of his body is still completely paralyzed, and his chances of ever walking again or using his right arm again are pretty dismal at this point. So if you want to instead listen to huckster influencers or TV TV personalities instead of actual medical professionals, well, there you go, there's your future. Ever since that personal tragedy happened, I've had the mindset of throw all of these snake oil salesmen into fucking prison. They should be treated as no different than a serial killer, and they have no problem profiting off of who knows how many people's deaths. But I know that's never going to happen in this country because look at who we have as Secretary of Health and Human Services. RFK Jr., how lovely. You must have missed the impeachment hearing, which amounted to Trump being accused of inciting an insurrection by saying fight like hell, and the defense simply played a video for 10 minutes of Democrats saying fight in their public speeches, including Elizabeth Warren using the word fight like 40 times in just one speech. Case closed. You know, it's always funny when Trumpers try to deflect Trump clearly inciting an insurrection on January 6th by saying, well, look at all of these Democrat speeches where they say the words fight, or anything that could even be remotely construed as inciting violence or unrest. Okay, when was the last time a Democrat gave a speech and then their supporters stormed the Capitol building or any other government building? You mentioned Warren in your comment. Where were the Warren supporters storming the Capitol right after this speech where she supposedly said the word fight 40 times? It's almost like Trump giving a speech in which he is rallying his base up and telling him that an election he lost fair and square was actually stolen from him, and then he is telling his supporters to quote-unquote fight like hell right before they proceed to go and attack the Capitol building. There might be some correlation between those two things. A for effort, I suppose. It was still a pitiful attempt at absolving Trump of any blame for what happened on that day, but I don't expect any better from a Trumper anyway. It's for men. She should be hot. Girls don't play these types of games. You're silly. Yes, no woman has ever played Silent Hill 2. One of the most iconic and revered survival horror games of all time. No woman has ever played a Resident Evil game either, the most iconic survival horror franchise of all time, and one of the most iconic video game franchises of all time on top of that. Okay, sarcasm aside, you just know all of these anti-woke dipshits were so ready to blame Silent Hill 2's remake bombing on wokeness. But then the game came out, defied all expectations, and ended up being a great game, and all of these people conveniently shut the fuck up. I mean, even I was expecting the game to be subpar, not for wokeness or any stupid reason like that. It was made by a studio previously not known for making good games. Konami did a shit job at marketing the game. On top of being happy that the game actually ended up being great, I am also happy that it made all of these fuckheads close their mouths. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised that this person doesn't know that women are perfectly capable of having varying interests and are also capable of being interested in things that are traditionally enjoyed by men, quote unquote, since this person is an Asmongold fan after all. Huh, I guess Tim Walz wasn't an excellent VP pick. I wonder who could have seen that coming. Of all the things to point at that doomed Kamala's campaign, this is easily the dumbest fucking thing. Campaigning with the Cheneys, constantly appealing to quote-unquote moderate Republicans instead of her actual fucking base. Refusing to differentiate herself from Biden, especially on the issue of Gaza. Running a boring, centrist campaign that excited no one. I have a feeling all of those things played a much bigger factor into her losing in November than a VP pick known for being a true populist enacting a plethora of great policy in the state of Minnesota with only a one-seat majority favoring the Democrats, which led to early momentum for her campaign that was completely squandered by all of the things that I just mentioned. But yeah, I know what this comment is. Don't you feel so stupid for initially feeling enthusiasm for one of the very few objectively good things about Kamala's campaign? No, I can't say I do, sorry. Oh boy, sorry, but 135 is simply not true. For context, the part of the video this comment is referencing is me saying I tend to not hold the political opinions of Chappell Roan or any other high-profile celebrity in very high regard because of their high status in society. They're rich and famous, so they don't necessarily have the same skin in the game as someone who is in a much lesser fortunate position. Like, for example, I don't think people like Taylor Swift or Chappell Roan will be affected affected much, if at all, by an $800 billion reduction in Medicaid funding. Unlike many other people in this country who don't even have a fraction of the money those two have, Taylor especially. Those are the people who are much more likely to rely on Medicaid, not rich and famous celebrities. That's why I tend to hold the opinions of regular people who are actually impacted by these awful policies than rich celebrities who can weather the storm much easier. Anyway, yes, lots of rich people are allowed to skirt the rules whether they're famous or not, but Roe being overturned affects all women, and the horrible anti-LGBT bills that have come out are dangerous and life-threatening for those of us in the queer community. If it ever gets to the point where there is a nationwide abortion ban in this country, rich and famous women like Chapel Roan have more than enough resources to go to anywhere in the world to receive an abortion if they end up with an unwanted pregnancy. Or maybe they could even have one performed in this country discreetly. And when it comes to harm being done by the LGBT community, I believe Chapel Roan is a lesbian. Any discrimination she has received or receives is obviously horrible, but at the end of the day, she is adored by millions. She has surely accrued enough money to live a comfortable lifestyle. Discrimination wouldn't exactly have as much of an impact on her life as, say, a teenage girl who would be kicked out of her home by her parents if they were to find out she was a lesbian. I have empathy for Chapel Roan, but I also understand that the stakes are much lower for her than it is for someone else who is a lesbian, but in a much lesser fortunate position than her. She is part of the queer community and has featured local drag artists as openers for all of her shows. She absolutely cares about LGBTQ rights and trans rights. She even brought it up when she accepted her VMA for Best New Artist. And that's all great. I'm not saying she can't be an ally or a voice for the LGBT community. She seems to be great representation for the LGBT community. I'm just saying, since she doesn't have as much skin in the game as other people in this country do, as in most of the people in this country don't have access to the same wealth and resources that she does, I care more about what regular people have to say about policies that would affect them worse than they would a rich and famous celebrity. I essentially wish that most of the public would care about these sorts of issues when their fellow citizens are speaking out against them, and not only care when a celebrity speaks about these sorts of issues. This idea that celebrities and rich people will literally never be affected by anything that happens in government just because they're rich and famous is absolutely ridiculous. Well, unfortunately, we live in a country where your wealth determines what resources you have access to, and how easily you can access these resources. So yes, regular people absolutely are impacted differently by policies than celebrities are, oftentimes in a negative way. She was literally born and raised in Missouri in a tiny town and has worked her ass off for 10 years. I don't care about her life story. I know, she's lived both lifestyles. She grew up poor and unknown, and now she's rich and famous. I'm not discounting the hard work she has surely put in to get to where she is now. I'm not invalidating her life experience. I'm just saying she won't be impacted the same way by negative policies like regular folk would. So therefore, I care more about what regular folk have to say about policies that are far more likely to impact them than they would Chapel Roan. I'm rich too, and Trump becoming president almost ruined my fucking life. So don't tell me I don't have a stake in what matters, or that I'm not allowed to have empathy for other human beings just because I have money. When did I ever say you're not allowed to have empathy for those lesser fortunate than you? Just because I never have to worry about where my next meal comes from doesn't mean I don't care where other people's meals come from. I'm a communist. Well, that's great. I'm not one of those insufferable gatekeepy leftists who say just because you're in a privileged position, you're not allowed to be on the left. Not to mention that anything the government does relating to climate change affects all of us no matter our wealth. The wealthy you are, the easier you'll have it, and the more time you can put off it. I'm sorry, the punctuation is awful. Affecting you, but you're not free from hurricanes and scorching heat. It will still affect all of us. We all share this planet together. If a regular person's home is destroyed by a natural disaster, that usually means their life, by extension, is destroyed, as that was their only home and they have no means to rebuild it or relocate. When a super rich rich and super famous person's home is destroyed by a natural disaster, they usually have like 5 other houses they could go to. We just had those LA wildfires, and more people were concerned about celebrities' homes remaining intact than, the regular people whose homes were destroyed, and they, again, had no means of rebuilding their homes or relocating. I have more empathy for those people than I do a rich person who only lost one out of the 6 mansions they own. So yes, you're right, climate change does in fact affect celebrities, but not exactly in the same way. It affects someone who is not nearly of the same stature. And the rest of the comment I don't need to read because it's pretty much just agreeing with my main point of the video. The rest before that was all in response to a little remark I made for only like 10 seconds of the video. But anyway, that concludes this edition of the Comment Waste Bin. These videos are half fun to make and also half torture because these comments tend to give me a fucking aneurysm. Am I exaggerating? Maybe, maybe not. But it makes no difference to you because I'm sure you enjoy listening to me clap back at the stupid comments I receive under my videos sometimes. You're welcome. Anyway, that's all the stupid comments I had to respond to. Bye-bye.